What's up, guys? Welcome to Neo Vintage Games' first event review. I'm Jabril and I am with
Steve.
And today we're going to be going over the PS5 event that just happened. Finally, we got a look at Sony's next-gen console. And so basically how we're going to do this is we're going to go through every single game announced and then go through the console, kind of review that we got at the end of the event. Of course, we're going to have timestamps down below of every single game so you can skip to wherever you want to hear us speak about. So, Steve, what did you think of the event overall before we get into our specific thoughts for every game?
So overall, this blew my expectations out of the water. I kind of had a feeling and an idea of what was going to play out, especially the way we've seen other developers doing their kind of direct footage. I didn't realize how long this event was. I don't know if they said it was like an hour, pretty much. No idea that was that long. I didn't know they were gonna have such big, heavy hitters and so many surprises. And this is just, I'm so excited. This is what I wish I would have walked away from, like the Xbox event that happened a while ago. And I know they have future streams going on. I'm blown away, and I was almost speechless for so long. How did this hit you?
Yeah, so I gotta give Sony their credit. We obviously were very apprehensive about kind of Sony's low-key approach to this next gen, holding their tongue for so long. And we both said that when they come back, they gotta hit. But they did have the advantage of seeing Xbox Go and kind of being able to maybe pivot last minute to make sure that their presentation learned from the mistakes of any of the previous. So that's kind of the benefit of going second in their view. I think they did a fantastic job with this presentation. They gave us everything. They gave us first-party games, third-party games, and a console review. That's pretty much, and a little bit of the console specs and stuff like that. Obviously, there's going to be the ray tracing. Obviously, they confirmed the HD Blu-ray stuff there. So, they went well above and beyond where a first console review could be and what I expected it to be. I expected games, obviously. I didn't necessarily think they were going to break up the first and third party maybe like Microsoft did, but I am really impressed that we saw the console. And yeah, it was tacked on really late at the end there, but I got to give them their flowers, man. I got to give them their credit. They absolutely killed it, and I pretty much don't have any major critiques about it other than maybe some of the content of the games themselves. But from a Sony perspective, I think they did everything they had to do and more.
Yeah, I feel the same way. They hit the checks and balances. You go, like you were saying, first party, third party, indies, smaller games, rumored games. Hope, some of these games have been on people's wish lists and dreams for a long time. And it's just, I just, after such a long drought of information and weird, specs and stuff like that that we're releasing, I am just so excited that they were like, listen, we know you guys are starving and want this information. Here we go. And they just unloaded on us.
And I think the big thing we have to commend them for is they came with the one thing that people will critique them on, which is gameplay. Presence of gameplay they got us with.
Yes.
It wasn't just a bunch of pre-rendered cutscenes. Of course we got that for certain games because obviously games are in different stages of development. But for the stuff that's, closer to holiday 2020 launch and maybe early 2021 launch, even if it's vertical slices, we did get to see many games running in engine, and you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm so happy. I can't wait to get into this and discuss this.
All right, so I guess we could start with the first game, and in my opinion, a really, really peculiar way to start a next-gen discussion, but they started out with GTA 5, which is interesting. Again, starting out a PS5 event with essentially a PS3 game is not something I would have predicted. And at first I was like, well, really? Like, they're going to start out with this. But then them explaining that it's going to come to PS5 for, everybody at launch. And then obviously PS4 people are going to get the money on GTA 5 online. That kind of saved it for me. And I'm like, okay, so GTA 5, you've played this game before. What do you think about it? It was kind of a given in my opinion.
Yeah, at this point, like we're saying, this is it's the end of the cycle of the PS3 when this game originally came out. So it's exciting that it's still going on. I'm assuming they're probably going to transfer the same way they transferred a lot of the online content from PS3s to PS4. I'm assuming they're going to do kind of that same idea where your online profile will bring over and you get to continue your GTA Online. People were kind of like about this. I thought it was okay to start. I was worried because I didn't want to set the pace for the rest of the event. But the little things like the $1 million a month until it releases on PS5
That's a lot of
It's a
money.
huge deal. That's a lot of money. That's a huge deal for people. You know, this wasn't just directed to anybody. This is directed to the people who play GTA Online, which there is a huge community across all platforms, but specifically PS4 because of Rockstar's relationship with Sony. And that's a lot of money. People are probably super excited for that, you know, because they're already playing it, and now here's more money for
And
just
actually,
to keep playing.
what surprised me a lot about this was the fact that it's actually GTA 5 as a complete package coming to PS5 and not just GTA Online. And
Yes,
if you would have asked me what I thought, GTA at launch looks like on the PS5, I would have guessed that they would have just brought over the online ecosystem, and then GTA 5 in and of itself would have been left behind, and maybe they would have launched it with a massive expansion to the online suite. But it looks like they're kind of not only bringing the campaign, bringing the online, but then also souping it up from there. I'm assuming it's going to run smoother. Maybe it's going to run at a native 60. It's going to run at a higher resolution, maybe 4K native. I don't know necessarily. It doesn't look like they're going to be shifting engines in its entirety. But then again, we have to remain to get more information on that. But I'm pretty much impressed. Again, my only confusion regarding this was its placement in the presentation. Starting off the presentation with this instead of the next game that we're going to get into, Spider-Man, is a very interesting choice.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like this was just a sort of announcement. They wanted it somewhere else. They didn't know where else to put it.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're going to have this big event. And with so many delays and everything that was been going on the last few months, I accepted it. You know what? I was like, it could have been worse. You could have put this at the end of the show for some reason.
Oh, yeah. No, that would have been a nightmare. How pissed off would it? Might as well ended it with Skyrim. But
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to the second game. The one that I'm probably the most excited of from all of these games combined. Spider-Man Miles Morales. We don't know the scale of this yet. It's assumed that it's a new game in its entirety, but it doesn't look like an expansion necessarily. We don't know the amount of resources. Obviously, Insomniac's doing a lot of stuff, but I have to say I am over the moon excited about this. Miles Morales is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. And obviously, just from the visual perspective and the audio choices of having like Kid Cudi playing in the background, this is obviously taking cues from the animated movie, which is the exact direction that I wanted them to take any kind of Miles Morales related property for Spider-Man going forward. So how excited are you for this?
I almost like lost my mind. Again, I'm just like you. You know how much I love the Miles Morales story, the aspect of Spider-Man. You know how much I love that game. And when they just were like, I just didn't expect to see it so soon. And not only is it, obviously, it's obviously taking place after Spider-Man PS4, and it's not like, oh, here's a small DLC story that came out for Miles. Like, no, the game's called Spider-Man Miles Morales. Again, we don't know how extensive it is, if this is like the full-fledged sequel, or if it's more like an Infamous First Light kind of a package, which was, full production. I don't care. I get to play as Miles Morales. I saw the powers. I saw when he does the shocking and I'm lost at words. It was so amazing. When I saw that it was Miles, I just couldn't believe it. And a part of me still doesn't believe that I saw that trailer already.
Yeah, for real. And I mean, in my view, worst case scenario, at the very least, this is going to be akin to maybe a separately sold Lost Legacy type deal, where maybe it's like a $40 title. It's not necessarily as long as the original, but it is its own distinct thing. And I mean, I'm more than happy with that. But again, best case scenario, this is essentially Spider-Man 2 that just got announced. So
exactly. Exactly. I know. I think they're pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing, and I'm just excited. It's being, at least the way it was presented, is being like, this is the next game in that Spider-Man world.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they'll play around with the Spider-Verse. Who knows? Having him be the lead kind of expands the possibilities, because anyone who's familiar with Miles Morales knows how he kind of goes hand in hand with the multiverse kind of themes of the Spider-Man series. Yeah. So, I mean, again, the opportunities are endless. So I guess we can move on to the third game. I don't know if we have too much to say about this, but this is a pretty big deal for the Sony ecosystem. Gran Turismo 7, obviously this is by Polyphony Digital. Absolute legends in the racing sphere. Seeing Sony come back with this incredibly high quality caliber racing experience, racing sims more specifically. This is not the arcade titles that you might expect from some Sony titles. What do you think about this? Are you into the Gran Turismo games?
I'm not into them as like playing wise. I always like what they do for like Sony, what they do for the franchise, because this is like the sim racing game for Sony, and you can't get Gran Turismo anywhere else. And I remember Gran Turismo Sport being sort of like awkward, where some people refer to it as Gran Turismo 7, and they didn't, and it was weird. I'm glad that they're like, look, this is Gran Turismo 7. And here's some amazing gameplay. It looked fantastic, and
photorealistic.
I was blown away how it looked. And I know that's only on the stream. I can only imagine later when they put the 4K video up, it's going to be fantastic. I'm glad it's there. That's such a big seller, for Sony. It's always been such a big seller. So it's super exciting to see it. Conform to like, look, this is the 7. This is what you want. We know it's that Gran Turismo Sport was this weird thing. We tacked on VR, kind of that kind of stuff. So they're like kind of bringing it back to roots. It looked fantastic. The racing looked cool. It's there for those fans for sure.
Yeah, and I think this game is one of Sony's most important ones, because this is a lane that they have to compete in. They cannot cede this, because Forza is coming hard, and these are high quality experiences you're getting over there. So It's important for the Sony ecosystem to not lose that sphere. You don't want necessarily the racing, industry as a whole to be kind of a given for a Microsoft thing. You want to compete in that space and compete at a high level. And so Polyphony's always, at the very least, offered really quality experiences. And going back to the PS1 days, their titles have always pushed the hardware to its absolute limit. So seeing it coming so early into the life cycle of PS5 is really exciting to me. And if any team in Sony's ecosystem could really extract the most power out of the PS5 as possible, it's going to be them, because smooth frame rates and high resolution textures are kind of a mandatory for high quality racing sims at this point. Exactly. So I have a lot of faith in this game. I have a lot of faith in that game.
Of course.
Now we can move on to Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Insomniac game. Now this is a massive step up from the previous entry. Obviously, they rebooted it last gen. It launched at a relatively budget title. I think it was $40 at launch. And it was not a proven entity at that point. They were coming with a kind of like mascot platformer type situation. Highly regarded, but again, in the modern game sphere, things change a lot. So I'm pretty sure they did not expect it to perform as well as it did. But it absolutely killed. It was highly regarded. People loved it. Fantastic game. And so they're coming back now with, I'm sure, a different level of pressure this time, where people have higher expectations. And I think from what we've seen here, and they showed off a lot of gameplay, they're definitely well equipped to meet those demands. They obviously got the budget this time, and I was seeing stuff visually that the PS4 was straight up not capable of doing. So how impressed were you with this game?
Yeah, I was really excited. When I saw that opening, I was like, are they really gonna give me Ratchet and Clank? I mean, we've heard for a while that they were working on a sequel, and I'm just glad this is not like, you gotta remember the first reboot was also the movie tie-in, so you had a lot of that weird budget.
There's limitations there, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why some of the cutscenes were so static, like they would be stiff there. But then you see this one, they're so fluid, and when they're talking about ray tracing and stuff, and you can see it when Clank is like reflecting the world, like you could see essentially what would be behind the camera reflecting off Clank and the lights and stuff like that. I like that weird, it's almost like a grappling hook mechanic with the portal zooming. So I think that's very exciting. And I think this is just going to be, like we were saying, a step up, and it's going to be a sequel in every way that it should be, and in the right ways. You're looking like you have the voice acting looks great, the animation looks great, all the gameplay's there, the wacky weapons, the wheel. I like to see. Anytime I see Ratchet and Clank, I like to see that wheel to see how many weapons we're gonna get and how crazy they like to get. So this looks like it's right there. I'm glad it's not. From my understanding, it's nowhere being a super retelling of like the second one, and we're not going down that road. They're kind of sticking to what Ratchet and Clank should be, because I know in the originals they went nuts with like Deadlock and all those other ones. So yeah. I'm glad it looks like a more natural, evolved Ratchet and Clank, especially one that needs to and will, I can already tell, will survive and kill it in this time.
Yeah, and just by seeing the level of quality and care that they're putting into this game and how hardware pushing this is, I'm assuming they're going to make the transition into a full $60 title, and this is going to get treated like a full Sony
sure.
exclusive offering the year that it comes out. I believe 2021 is more likely that it's going to be coming out, as opposed to a more budget kind of B title that the original one was.
For sure. Can't wait.
All right, so we can move on to the next game, Square Enix game, Project Athia. Now, this is a new IP. We don't really know too much about it. Square, they haven't said anything about this before. This is news to me, and watching it, I was like, is this Final Fantasy? It's hard to tell because Final Fantasy games change so much in between them.
Exactly.
So I couldn't tell what it was, and then they said Project Athia, and I was like, I have no clue what this is. But from what I've seen, it looks gorgeous. I'm really enjoying the character design of this. Did you have any thoughts about this game?
I mean, it looked interesting. I'm usually, we're both pretty big Square fans, so usually what they do, we look into, we try. If it hits our spot, then we'll usually play. And this looks fantastic. It looked like something I wanted to see more of and play more of. And knowing Square, the story will be ridiculous, crazy, super metaphors. Who knows? But
hard to follow, but
yeah, hard to follow. But it looked exciting, and I feel like already I can see like this is one of those games that people just run with theories, fandoms, and what's it represent, and that kind of stuff. Even though it was such a short like snippet that we got, it looks fantastic. That really blew me away. But I'm super excited. And it did what a teaser trailer should, and that's tease you and hook you. Like, man, I want to see more of that. And Project, that's probably not going to be the official name, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, then again, there was Project Octopath Traveler, so I mean, it really could be the name. I hope it's not, but.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But and again, I do think it's important to note this is Square, so they're not known for their speed. So anybody who's super, super excited about this game, temper your expectations, be prepared for a wait, because again, Square is not known for being able to turn around games at the fastest clip.
That's for sure as well.
All right, so the next one we can get into is an Annapurna game, which I was really excited to check out. Whenever you see a little bit smaller teams that have really made a name for themselves in the past few years, I get pretty excited to see them at big first-party conferences. And we have the game Stray, so we got kind of a look at like a cat running through some kind of cyberpunk, robo-tech, post-human world. Did you have any thoughts about this? We didn't really see too much gameplay. It was all pre-rendered cutscenes, so we don't know if this is like a puzzle game or a walking sim or what.
Yeah, I mean, right off the rip, I thought it was pretty. It's an interesting idea. It reminded me, like, from the beginning part, we see all those robots, and it's funny that I don't know if you've seen on Netflix. There was Love, Robots, Death, or Love, Death, and Robots.
Yes, the Netflix show. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that one snippet where it's like no humans exist, and it's like robots walking around the world, and surprisingly at the end there's some cats. I thought like it was hitting those notes like word for word, like no humans. You got these weird robots kind of walking around, and then like you got this little stray cat, and I'm like. Okay, it piqued my interest. Again, what kind of game? Is it a puzzle? Is it, decision making,
platformer,
story based, platformer? Who knows? Is it more, like we were saying? But I liked it. It was, it has an identity, which is I would like to see the games being unique.
Yeah, and obviously this was the kind of transition point. They went from first party, they got Square, and now we're going into a lot of the, not necessarily indie, but like high budget indie titles of the conference. Mm-hmm. And so starting out with this one, it was a good transitionary period where you're like, okay, so they're moving on to kind of like the different class of things. Not lower, but different, where you're going to get a lot of the artsier games, a little bit more high concept stuff at this point. And that transitions perfectly into the next game, which is Returnal, which is one of the stranger titles because it's important to notice that the developer of this game is Housemarque. So when they said that they were done with arcade games, boy, did they mean it. I mean, this game looks nothing like the games that the Super Stardust and the Dead Nations and the Resoguns that we came to know them for last gen. They're making a massive transition here. Probably the biggest transition we've seen a team make since probably Sony Bend when they went from making Vita titles to full-blown console titles with Days Gone. We don't know we know a lot of things visually here, but in terms of how like the moment-to-moment gameplay looks like, we don't know how this looks. Housemarque has an excellent, shooting pedigree, third-person shooting at least, so I'm assuming that from a gameplay perspective, it's probably going to be pretty fun, addictive gameplay, but again, the transition from arcade to this kind of high-budget console experiences could also mark, no pun intended, a gameplay transition. So what is your thoughts about this game?
Yeah, no, it was exciting to see that it's, again, Housemarque, because it's been such a long time, and coincidentally it's called Returnal, and they're kind of returning back to the platform because they've been quiet, for so long, and people are like, oh, when's the next arcade shooter? And, it comes to as great as those games are, they don't want to keep making the same game over and over. They want to follow their passions. They want to follow, people's tastes change, and people change as humans, so they want to create different things. And so this is, like, again, if you would have shown me this trailer and been like, guess the developer, I would nowhere have guessed Housemarque. But I love all their work, and I can't wait to support and see more of what they have.
Yeah, I would have guessed Remedy before Housemarque for sure. Because, again, it gave me, like, spacey Control vibes. And I'm like, okay, so they're going that direction. And just to see Housemarque's name attached to it, I just love to see different teams grow. Because, again, you would have talked to me, 10 years ago, talk about Housemarque. I'm not saying anything like this. But then again, you go back to the 90s, and if you would have told me that, Naughty Dog would have been making something like The Last of Us 2, I would have thought you were an absolute liar. So,
like, again, I love to see it.
I love to see these teams that, are such small teams making a certain type of thing, and then you fast forward all these years later, and they completely reinvent themselves. And obviously, staffs change, and management changes, and different views and generations shift things. So obviously this is kind of the natural evolution of Housemarque, and obviously there's financial realities where the arcade space was hard for them to occupy. So this makes all the sense in the world, and I'm really excited for them, and I just hope this really does well, because again, amazing games that Control sometimes underperform, and I would hate for Housemarque to bump into another situation where something's not hitting those financial returns they need. So I'm really, really rooting for them this time around. I think this is a new opportunity for them to really reinvent themselves and kind of put their names up there. Because, again, CD Projekt Red, again, 10 years ago wasn't what it is today. So it's not impossible for a team to go from relative obscurity to an absolute juggernaut in the industry.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more from this and see what they've really... I think they're coming out swinging. They want to show people that they're more than just what they used to be.
Absolutely. And now we can move on to the next one, which is one of the ones that I think people should pay the most attention to. And it's Sackboy, a big adventure. It's basically taking the main protagonist of the Little Big Planet series and putting them basically in a platformer, a dedicated up to 4-person player platformer, it seems like. But the important thing to note here is that Sumo Digital's working on it. So Media Molecule, the ones who did the first two, are not attached to this title. So it seems like you're getting a full-blown, not Little Big Planet, but a spin-off game done by Sumo Digital, which is worth mentioning. I'm not sure. I don't believe they did the third one, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I'm not sure. But this is worth noting. I think this is a good play for them to trying to get the younger demographic onto the Sony ecosystem, because obviously it skews a little bit older. They try with games like Knack and stuff like that. But I think games like this are important to have in the ecosystem to kind of reach a little bit of a younger demographic.
Yeah, this was super surprising, and this is something we've always wanted. I remember when we were discussing our favorite game mascots a while ago on the podcast, this came up, like how much we love Sackboy, and we wish that he was pulled away a little bit from the create, share, play aspect that was Little Big Planet 1, 2, and 3. And now we have it. Now we have Sackboy. This is what people always wanted from Media Molecule. They've constantly said, oh, it's cool they make these tools, but we want them to make a real game. And though Little Big Planet 1 and 2 did have campaigns in a sense, it wasn't like fully in there. It was always more of a showcase of what you can do with the tools. So when I saw Sackboy, I was like, Little Big Planet 4? I was like, I feel like we're way past that time. And then, it wasn't Little Big Planet presents Sackboy. It was like, Sackboy, look, he's an icon now. He's a true mascot. He's going to have his own stuff. With Sumo Digital is they did make Little Big Planet 3.
Yep, just looked it up, confirmed, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, which
so it looks like it's their series now.
So it's it is their series. Media Molecule has moved to Dreams, and they're doing what they're doing over there. So it's exciting to see that Little Big Planet needed to evolve in a sense. Sackboy needed to evolve in a sense, and like we were saying, they couldn't just keep cranking out, here 20 levels, and you make your levels with Sackboy with janky Street Fighter outfits and all these weird stuff. It's like, let them do what they need to do, because Sumo Digital is a talented company, and there's so many talented people who work over there. They've worked on a variety of things. So to them be like, listen, we're going to give you our mascot again, but don't, Little Big Planet 3's issue was it was trying to replicate Media Molecule. And now they're like, well, listen, here's the character, but make a game. Have fun with this character and in the world and the fact that, he does have a giant zipper. And it's weird to see some of the stuff because some of the gameplay looked like Little Big Planet, but then the camera would shift and you have more of a top-down view and you've got more of a 3D view and you're swinging at enemies and things that you never saw in Little Big Planet 3 or 1 and 2 naturally, without being a weird, awkward work around their engine. Like, this game is a game.
Yeah, and it's a smart choice to make this pivot now. There is a bit of a resurgence of the 3D platformer in that kind of 90s style ever since, obviously, Crash is back. You got Yooka-Laylee, you got A Hat in Time, you got a whole bunch of people kind of throwing their hat. Obviously, Nintendo's always going to kind of dominate that space. So now's the time that, if you don't do it now, I don't know if this is ever going to get a chance to bring Sackboy back. So I think this is the way to do it. This is the time to do it. And again, I think it's a smart kind of game to have in your ecosystem right now because, again, you don't want it to skew completely old. If you want to kind of dominate and have those sales of that younger demographic. And obviously you're going to have like those online games like Fortnite that are going to exist persistently. But I think a game that is primarily marketed towards a younger demographic to really not cede all that ground to Nintendo is a smart decision to make, generally speaking.
Exactly. This is something that I feel like this already what I've seen in Sackboy: A Big Adventure. I'm way more excited to play this than I was to play either of the Knack games, and they were really pushing Knack. Don't forget that we got 2 Knack games.
2 of them.
Come on. And at least we do now have Sackboy, which is, I know they were pushing Knack to be a mascot, and I get it, but why not? And we're seeing that with Sony, rely on your strengths, which is Sackboy, which is recognizable, and people love that look.
So I guess we can pivot on to the next game, which is actually one of the more interesting ones that we saw, and it's Destruction All-Stars. This, I guess, is done by a team named Lucid. And if you guys don't remember which one I'm talking about, it's the one that basically looks like Rocket League meets Fortnite, basically. And from what it looks like a fun game. It doesn't look like necessarily my cup of tea. That kind of online ecosystem, I'm assuming, and it gave me a little bit of like Battle Royale vibes, but I don't know how many players are going to be in a single lobby, so it's something that I think we've seen stuff like that before, but I won't go as far to say as there's like no lane for this, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. I don't think it's necessarily reinventing the wheel. I think they're very much cashing in on a certain demographic and trying to compete in that space. I wish them nothing but success on it, but again, that's a very competitive space. But again, maybe you can get a leg up by being one of the early games on the PS5. That always helps to be one of the early people on a brand new platform. Those always sell a little bit more. So I hope nothing but success for them. But again, it looked a tad derivative to me, judging by just a visual perspective. What did you think?
So yeah, I had the same feel. I was like, wow, this is very... So artistically, I was like, does look like a slightly edgier, like a cross between Fortnite and Bleeding Edge sort of look.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And then I saw the gameplay. I was like, yo, why is this not Twisted Metal? I was like, why is this not Twisted
100%.
Metal? Because you see the car, but then in the Twisted Metal, I just feel like Twisted Metal would have fit this, and I understand developers and they have their passions, but it's like when they're coming out their cars and fighting each other, I was like, I just imagine Sweet Tooth's ice cream machine blowing up, him coming out with his big belly, the big blade, and fighting like one of the the priest and all that kind of stuff. But I'm open to new ideas. We don't know if this is will this be a PS Plus game, a free to play game, microtransactions. We don't know what this really looks like because having free weekends to have people test it out. I just hope it doesn't go the route. Again, I'm the same boat as you. I want to wish everyone the best. I want everyone to succeed. I want a big healthy ecosystem. Just don't know. Oh, hopefully the audience is there. Again, this is probably one of those things I would play for like a weekend and then be like, that was dope. But there's only so much of that loop of getting like, it feels like that's going to be a cosmetic game where it's like, you can get the different outfits and different car paints and stuff like that. And that kind of faded for me a long time ago with all these battle royales and stuff. But I hope there's more to it. Man, I'll keep an eye out. Of course, once I see something that interests me, I will definitely take a look.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns when a game is announced and you can name the 3 things that exist within that game, That that concerns me. Whenever you go to launch and it's immediately like, oh, that's A, B, and C combined. I don't necessarily think that's a good place to be in. But and it's a highly competitive industry as well. Again, they're going up against juggernauts at this point.
Yeah,
The people that are left in the battle royale space, and again, we're throwing around the word battle royale. They never use that term, so it's assumed on our end. It's some kind of competitive multiplayer game. But that's a very competitive space. And going into next gen, I don't think that's going to suddenly change. But I wish them nothing but the best. So I guess we can move on to the next game, which looks absolutely fantastic to me, which is, I believe, Kenna Bridge of Spirits. This is Ember Lab. It was giving me a little bit of like Rhyme meets like Zelda Breath of the Wild vibes. I love the art style. It's absolutely gorgeous. I saw those particle effects and stuff like that. So truly taking, advantage of that next gen hardware. And I just love to see a game like this. A lot of kind of like tribal, foresty kind of imagery in it. So I'm all about this game, and I'm definitely getting this day one. What did you think about it?
Yeah, no, I loved it immediately. When I saw the art, the art style and all that stuff, I was like, this is cool. I like the slow themes and the little like guys. My only thing is like, man, I know for a fact. I was like, this stream is not doing this justice. When I look at this trailer later and it's 4K when they upload it separately, that's gonna blow my mind. Because you can, like, the little guys that come out, you can see, like, the texture fur on them. When she was lighting things up, all the particle effects, like you were saying, and the way the lighting works, I'm like, this is what I wanted. I think when we did the discussion of what I wanted on next gen, I was like, I want artistical style to be pushed. Boom, wish granted, because that game looks gorgeous, and it's not a gritty bro shooter. It's not a gritty, big, muscular man looking realistic with the beard. I'm like, it looked gorgeous. Like, that looked amazing. That looked Pixar Disney level to me, in my opinion, and I loved it. And for sure, I'm gonna buy that day one.
And just judging by the small amount of gameplay that we saw and maybe the small amount of pre-rendered cutscene, this game to me proves that next gen could not only just be advantageous to the Maddens and the NBAs of the world that kind of go for that photorealism, but also games that have that kind of maybe like a cell shaded type of artwork and cartoonier looks, where they could take advantage of that too, and that like stuff like ray tracing and particle effects and those crazy smooth, SSD level loading screens and particle processing, all these crazy stuff that the next gen can do. They can also take advantage of that, and it could be very noticeable on a visual perspective as well, even if you're not going for photorealism in the traditional sense.
For sure, I completely agree.
Now, the next one excites me for multiple reasons, and that's Goodbye Volcano High. And this is an awesome thing to do in this kind of presentation because, again, having a game like this at the first unveiling of the PS5, to me, kind of communicates, even if on like a kind of subliminal level, that Sony has some degree of investment in kind of artsier indie titles. This is done by a team, I believe it's pronounced Co-op, and it's obviously going for that kind of artistic, indie, aesthetic, lo-fi, diverse type aesthetic for them, and I'm really excited about it. I don't know what type of game this is going to be play-wise. I've seen games like this. These are games that you definitely see super succeed on the Steam ecosystem. So seeing this at a Sony conference is really exciting for me, that just to see the future of titles maybe getting that push from Sony that maybe they lapsed during the PS4 era. Because again, the PS3 had this massive indie initiative, and I felt like that they kind of took a back burner on the PS4. But it seems like with the PS5, maybe they're willing to give them that push again. So did this game intrigue you at all?
It intrigued me more, obviously I was looking at the art style. Again, I was waiting to see what kind of game it was, if that's going to really hook me. But after thinking about it for a little bit, I'm like, man, this is going to go crazy popular on like streaming for streamers and people like that. If it's just that style and that kind of feel to it, that like you're saying, that very low-key, lo-fi, it looks like it's going to have story to its extent. They're bringing the books and stuff like that and off the title. So I'm excited to see what it is. I'd love to play it, but again, it seems like it's one thing I want to say, like in this conference in general, it had more than enough for everybody, and even if this hits a specific niche, it's gonna like really thrive there.
Yeah, the furries are gonna love this one, for real.
Yeah, that's when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, okay.
Hey, you get the coin where you can, man.
But they're people. Hey, listen, they're people too, and they deserve to have a game they really enjoy as well.
if there's a niche audience and there's people who are interested in creating art around that, hey man, I'm all for it. So the next one we got is something that really surprised me because I didn't expect this franchise to come back in this particular way. This is by Oddworld Inhabitants, and we have Oddworld Soulstorm. Now, this is a game. Have we seen this since PS1? I don't know if there may have been a PS2 sequel. I'm not sure.
There was actually a PS4 and Vita reboot of Oddworld a couple years ago. Yes. So I'm surprised this actually never come up between you and I. So I follow Oddworld Inhabitants, that like company, for a while. So I knew they've been told us they're working on a sequel.
Yeah.
I did not know it was like just like full-fledged. Like, this looked incredible. So the one that came out, and I want to say it's a reboot. I may be wrong. I don't follow Oddworld lore. I know they port a couple of them a while ago. So there is one I have on my Vita. There is a Vita one. I'm pretty sure it's on PS4 as well.
I know I have it on my Vita. There was titles released after the PS1.
Yeah, look it up.
I had no clue.
Look it up after the show. You're gonna be. It looks great. It's fantastic.
Okay.
So I lost my mind. I lost my mind when they showed this because I almost forgot a little bit because they were just for a long time teasing, and he was like, yeah, we're making another Oddworld game, guys. We're not ready to show it. And when he comes to show it, he comes out swinging. You got these nice cutscenes. You got the original gameplay really there, because I know like Munch's Odyssey and Stranger's Wrath, which are also other sequels that were on Xbox. Those come different. One's a first-person shooter, one's like a 3D platform kind of style. This one goes back to what the reboot did, and it looks fantastic. You got Abe look like it definitely has like the story being pushed way more. There's more story, there's more lore about Abe. That's why I believe the way they were discussing Abe was able to escape. That's what you do in this last reboot. So that was very exciting. So I'm so excited for what was the Soulstorm.
Yes, Soulstorm.
Because I cannot wait, man. I was so excited. I was just so happy like a little kid, and it's just because it stems back to when I first got like an old Game Boy at one time. We were at a flea market. My dad bought me Oddworld on Game Boy, and that's where I have some weird connection to Oddworld, even though it's such a weird game.
Yeah, I mean it's odd as it's the title.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and then the cool thing about this is it seems like a notable step up for the franchise while simultaneously also being very faithful. Because again, as I've said, I had no clue there was multiple sequels after the fact. So I'm only really familiar with the PS1 titles, and seeing this one, I'm like, wow, what a step up. But at the same time, I recognize that gameplay. So it's incredibly faithful to what I know Oddworld to be, which I think is an awesome thing that all these years later, you can find a way to have a next-gen title of a really old franchise and find a way to keep that gameplay fresh and exciting, yet familiar at the same time. That's not an easy line to walk across, and they seem to manage to do it with this title.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. I just can't wait to get my hands on it.
Okay, so the next game is something that we've seen before, which is Ghostwire Tokyo. This is the Tango Gameworks game that I believe we saw at the last E3, if I'm not mistaken, with that very endearing female. I can't remember her name.
I can't remember. But she was so excited. She ended up leaving a little bit after, which was
what
weird.
An adorable presenter. It's a shame she was no longer at the company. I don't believe.
Yeah, she came out at the Game Awards, made that really bear joke about her accent because she's like, "Listen, I know you can't understand me." I think she's very energetic. So, but yeah, she was the one who ended up revealing Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, her name is Ikumi Nakamura. I just wanted to make sure I get her name in there. So I was like bummed that she wasn't here. But yeah, she's the one who initially, I believe, showed off this game. And this is the first time I think we saw a decent amount of combat at this time. And so you got kind of like a first-person kind of weird casting Skyrim type situation. For a second, the way it looked, I was like, is this a VR game now? But it looked way too immersive in terms of like the hand movements to be a VR game. So it seems like it's just a first-person, action game. But I was definitely liking what I was seeing.
Yeah, it looks very exciting. Again, I was hoping we would see this soon because this last we saw it was at E3 at I want to say Bethesda's conference because I think they're publishing it or whatever or something like that. So yeah, I was excited to see gameplay of it. I had the first initial, that was my gut instinct too. It looked like a VR game. Just the way the angle was, the way the arms were kind of lower, but it looked very interesting the way it's all done. So I'm excited to see more of that. I'm more excited to obviously get my hands on it.
And okay, so from there we can move on to a weirder one by the Super Brothers. We have Jet the Far Shore. Now this seems like some kind of space exploration game, but again, it was a very vague kind of trailer. We didn't get too much information as to what your motivations are, how the moment-to-moment gameplay looks. It looks interesting, but again, I didn't know too much to take away from this trailer.
Yeah, I really don't have much else to say. I mean, again, I was interested watching, but nothing really happened. Not that I'm trying to take jabs at anyone. I was like, at that point, I was like, this has been a very eventful conference or direct or what. I don't know how you. It was very like impactful. You had all this crazy stuff, and then there was like this slower pace, and I wasn't really sure what I was seeing or how to interpret it. But I mean, that's all I really have to say on that. When I see more, I'll probably have a better judgment and more opinion on it. But
yeah, what was really peculiar about the trailer is how like pulled back that camera perspective was. So that's what made me wonder, like, is the gameplay you watching something going, or do you really just control a character from that distance? That's why I was like, is this some kind of VR title where you kind of exist in this world and move something along like that little mouse game that they had? Or is this... I wasn't exactly sure what shape this game's going to take. But again, this is obviously kind of an early look, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more from this game going on there. So the next game is something that we've also seen before. This was one of the early first next-gen titles that got confirmed for the PS5, and that's Godfall. And that's a counterplay game with kind of Gearbox publishing it. This game, we saw a lot more gameplay of it. It's a kind of like third-person action game. What did you think about it? It looked pretty cool to me.
It looks pretty cool. I like the style of it, the armor, the way that all kind of looks. It has like just like a flavor. I was really vibing with it when they first showed this off at, I want to say, Game Awards.
Yep.
And so seeing it again, I was like, I like the combat. I like in that. I just don't really see what kind of game this is exactly. 'Cause I know they talked about some online and multiplayer. Is there something for people who don't want to be playing that? Is there gonna be like a true campaign? What exactly am I getting here? Like graphics look great, the gameplay looks solid. Well, what is this? What is it though? I was left with the question, like, what is it? And maybe that's what they were kind of going for.
Yeah, the gameplay kind of screamed like MOBA vibes to me. It gave me a little bit of PvE fighting these battles, but at the same time, the action seemed pretty jarring and kinetic, so you're controlling it. So I wasn't sure if it was as strategic and more, just action oriented. And I don't know if this is dungeon crawly because they had a real strong emphasis on armor. So I'm curious to see this game be fully fleshed out to see what kind of lane it occupies, because the lane that it occupies will tell me the likelihood of success for this game, to be frank with you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that also made me kind of nervous.
So the next game we got here is Solar Ash. Now, this is kind of a weird game. This is done by the same studio, Heart Machine, that did Hyper Light Drifter. So I don't really know what kind of vibe they're going for here. I don't know if it's going to be more of an exploratory game. Hyper Light Drifter obviously had an amazing visual style that I think obviously is continuing with this title. That was a great game, so I have a lot of faith in Heart Machine to deliver another hit here. Did you have any thoughts on Solar Ash?
I was super excited to see that because I was always wondering how come they never did a sequel to that, and now this is obviously more of a revision of what they just, again, moving on, evolutioning. I'm glad that they kept the art style because immediately when I saw the character, I was like, oh, this is, Hyper Light. But I'm excited to see more of it. I have more than enough confidence that this game's going to hit and it's going to be successful and people are going to like it. I liked from what we've seen so far, style, vibe, music, noise, and all that kind of stuff. It looks spot on.
Yep, and then the next one is something I am super, super excited about, which is Hitman 3. This is the IO interactive game. It's so awesome that they got to keep this IP. I can't believe I don't know how they got away with that deal.
Square,
but somehow they got to keep the IP, and now we're getting a sequel of it. The first two Hitman games are absolutely fantastic. If you have not played them, go pick them up. They're very inexpensive. They have sales on them all the time. You can get like the entire Season 1 and Season 2 for probably under $20, to be honest, at this point. So Hitman 3, it seems like essentially I know they're wrapping up things narratively. I wasn't aware of that much of a narrative in the first two, to be honest with you. So this surprised me that they kind of have some narrative arc that's being completed over here. They did emphasize that this is a completion of an arc, which tells me that they definitely have more in tune for the future of Hitman. But in terms of like the gameplay and the general vibe, it seems of general more of the same, which I mean that in a good way because again, Hitman, that reboot, and then the second one are absolutely fantastic and did great things for the Hitman franchise. So more of the same, I'm all for.
Yeah, I was super excited to see this. I didn't think this is something that also just came out of left field. We haven't seen leaks or anything. We weren't even sure. I mean, we knew they kept the IP and they, Hitman 2 was successful to certain amounts. To see them being like, listen, now, not only is this Hitman 3, we know this is our completed arc right now for this story. Obviously, later Hitman games will probably be different. Who knows? Different protagonists. I've always said that they should do a female protagonist. Well,
yeah,
I guess main character. I don't know if you can consider it protagonist, but it's super exciting for them to see and treat this like, here is our conclusion. I wonder if they're gonna go the episodic way as well, or release it as a package, because the first two were right. Because even the second one was done episodic, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, yeah, it was, and that format is just so annoying to me. It's one thing if you had like a Telltale style game where like it's literally almost treated like a show, and it's annoying then. But to me, it's a little less annoying than a game that you literally play levels. It's like, come on, guys, just give us the complete game as a totality, please.
That's the only thing I'm assuming they're gonna go. I'd rather assume that they're going episodic and then be surprised and like, here's the full package. Can't wait to see what they do, because they find some creative ways to do some of these levels.
Oh yeah,
and we already saw a little bit. Amazing. He's all the way up in the sky. I'm like, whoa, this huge tower. I'm like, and he's sneaking on these like thin rails. I'm like, they always just step it up, and they always just top their own work, which is something you love to see. They've been doing this series with a passion. Obviously, you don't just crank out 3 games and fight for the IP if you don't have a love and a passion, and I love to see that. I absolutely love to see that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the future of this, franchise completely in IO's hand with no... And again, I don't know if there was a lot of interference beforehand when they were under another team, but to see any kind of team... Hitman and like Destiny are the 2 games that I'm like the most fascinated to see how they play out long term now that they're in the home of their developers themselves.
Exactly.
So the next one we can move on to is Astro's Playroom, Japan studio here. So it seems this is some kind of sequel to Astrobot, if I'm not mistaken. Also the Playroom thing that launched with the PS4. Do you have any interest in this? I don't know too much about these games.
I don't. So there's that Playroom that is pre-installed on a PS4, and I don't think you can even delete it. Can't remember if they updated so you can delete it. So that's there. I remember when the PlayStation came out, I was messing with the camera. I think one time when we hung out, we were messing with like shaking the control and the way they rattle and all that kind of stuff. These are always more, and I think I don't know if naming it Astro makes me believe it's more game, but then they added the Playroom, which is always kind of tech demo to me, because that's what Playroom was. Astrobot Rescue was full VR game. Playroom was a tech demo that came with the PS4. I'm glad that these little kind of robot mascots are still around. I was worried that they were going to be kind of left on PS4 because we had like the VR stuff, and then we had because we had 2 VR Playroom. We had VR Playroom. We had then the Astrobot Rescue. We had the Playroom when it launched. I'm glad they're moving it on, continuing it, and they're going to serve a purpose. Not really sure. Again, it's probably something... I don't know if it's a full-fledged game, if I'll be able to purchase it and really go for it. I know my wife enjoys playing those things because she likes those little guys, and there's an audience for those people who really have that. I know that Shuhei Yoshida, he loves those guys, so so it's exciting to see that, and I think it'll land what it needs to land.
I'm just really surprised to see, and we'll get into the hardware later, but they showed off that there's some kind of camera peripheral for the PS5. And them introducing this, I was just really surprised. I'm like, okay, you guys are really going down this path again? Okay. But again, there could have been returns. I'm not privy to every Sony financials, so there could be good enough returns on, especially Astrobot Rescue. But even the Playroom stuff, maybe the player count was high enough to justify bringing it to the next generation console, perhaps, again. I suppose there's something for everyone. So we can move on to the next one, Little Devil Inside. This is a NeoStream game. This was a really interesting looking game. Did you have any thoughts on it?
I was super intrigued. I was stuck watching it, and I was wondering the whole time because they showed the old man, then they showed the one guy going crazy. I'm like, is this what's the story? What's the connection? And then they kind of start showing like, is he inside of him? I'm like, so gameplay wise, it looks scary there. I like the art style. I feel like this is definitely like one of those theme games where I guess what one person's feeling is going to really reflect what the other person does inside, and it's interesting. I was very intrigued by it, and I was just like, what is this? And I was like, and then it was like, then it moved to the next trailer, and I was like, I kind of wanted to see more of that to see what's going on, but all right.
Yeah, some of the enemies, I mean, when you look at the art style at first, you think that it's going to be maybe like a kiddie indie title, but then when you see some of these enemies and they had that like Cheshire Cat looking guy that was kind of peering over the cliff while you're hiding behind it, it's horrifying.
All big and huge head. Horrifying.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if this is a game I'm going to play, but I'm really curious to see what the connection between the main protagonist, if you want to call him that, and that older gentleman is. I don't know if that's the same dude just later in life. They had some degree of combat there, and fairly fluid combat too, with some kind of gun and sword kind of going back and forth. So it's dynamic too. So respect to them. Curious to see how it plays. The next one we have is NBA 2K21, kind of a given. You're gonna have sports titles pretty much not even pretty much on every single console. So that's a given. Did you have any thoughts on NBA?
Not really. I felt like I was like, well, I knew they were gonna have a sport one. Xbox was pushing. I think Xbox had the reveal for Madden 21.
Yep. And they had
so I was
NBA
like, well, we're either gonna see FIFA or one of these sport ones. And so NBA. I mean, NBA is NBA. It is what it is. That's what I was like, okay.
Good sweat. Good sweat rendering.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing. I was like, all right.
The next one we have is Bug Snacks by Young Horses. This is the Octodad team, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they said.
Yes.
Not for me, but again, I could definitely see this game finding a lot of fans for sure. It's not something I'm ever gonna touch, so I'll let you guys know off rip about that. But is this a game that interests you?
Right off the rip, let me tell you, this is probably the one and only time I'll ever discuss this game. It's nowhere near for me. I was not interested at all. Nothing caught my eye. The animations, the graphics didn't. Not graphics, but all that. Nothing was calling out to me. I was left just like that was the one part of the conference, and I hate to admit it, that I closed my app really quick to answer a few texts, because I was like. At first, it looked like maybe like Justin Roiland's games. It looked like Trover or like the Rick and Morty games. So I was like, is that? But then they were super. I was waiting for someone like to drop an F-bomb or something, and then I was like, then maybe you have something. But I was like, no. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that game's obviously not directed towards me and not for me.
Yeah, they're going for something a little bit lighter here. So
yeah.
Again, just because it's not for us doesn't necessarily mean that it shouldn't exist. There's certainly a fan base for a game like this, just not us. But talk about a transition. The next game is the dead opposite of this one, which is,
I don't know.
I guess, a Demon Souls remake completely by one of the most legendary remake teams out right now, which is Bluepoint. And I gotta say, even if Demon Souls doesn't interest you, because again, this is kind of like the spiritual predecessor to the Dark Souls games, even if Demon Souls doesn't interest you, the fact that this is being done by Bluepoint should. I mean, these guys are killing it right now, and seeing them doing this really excites me. Does this interest you at all?
So I was super excited to see it in existence, because we've heard rumors, and mainly we heard, again, I don't know if he was kind of in the know, but Colin Moriarty from Sacred Symbols, for a while he's been saying, yeah, I think Bluepoint's making the Demon Souls remake, or he said at least he heard that. I as soon as he kind of said that, I was like, I feel like he knows some people over there at Bluepoint, because he was also quickly to know that Bluepoint was working on the Uncharted trilogy. I think they're the ones who ported it to PS4, and they did all this other stuff. So I was like, I feel like he was in the know. I'm excited for it. I don't play these games because I'm not good at them. Not that I don't like them. I love them. The only kind of Souls game I ever played was Bloodborne, and I really had to dive myself into. I don't know if I can do Demon Souls. It's the only thing that's maybe holding me off on. I'm super excited to see it. I can't wait to watch people play it. But it's not for me for the fact that I'm really bad at these games.
Yeah, it's just what excites me the most is just seeing that Blue Point name being attached to it, because then you just know not only is this going to be faithful, but this is going to be an improvement in all the right ways, because these guys know how to remake a game. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean they also did what we said. Like we said, they did Shadow of the Colossus, right?
They did Shadow of the Colossus. They did the Uncharted trilogy, if I'm not mistaken.
The Uncharted trilogy, yeah. Which I mean, they've already proven that they can do it. And we knew, and they did announce a while ago that they're like, our next game is another remake of something, and that was it. Listen, you're bringing these games that were kind of lost in time, and I did not care for Shadow of Colossus original. I loved the Shadow of Colossus Blue Point remake on PS4. Who knows if this maybe Demon's Souls will just hit at that right time where I'm just not really, I can dive into it, and who knows what can come of it.
Yeah, who knows with the remake, maybe because it's current update, maybe it'll be a little bit more fluid for you, and you could maybe play it a little bit better. Who knows? Because again, the Demon Souls, the Dark Souls, they're a lot slower, they're a lot more plotting, and they're a lot more precise. So maybe seeing a remake can make it a little bit more playable for you.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one is Deathloop. It's a Arcane Leon game. We've seen this before. I believe it was at the Bethesda presentation, if I'm not mistaken, last year. That we saw this game, and we got a little bit more of a look in context of the narrative and the kind of moment-to-moment gameplay. Really fast, kinetic, dynamic kind of shooting gameplay. I liked what I was seeing. They kind of had a little bit of a grappling hook thing there too. So I mean, I like what I see. I'm curious to see if it's how it actually translates when you're playing that kind of 10 to 15 hour, I'm assuming, experience. I don't really know what to expect with this one, but again, it looks pretty interesting, and I love that 60s aesthetic a lot. I love when games tap into that, kind of like We Happy Few and stuff like that. Yeah, so exactly. I'm curious to see how this shapes up when we get the full package. Is this something that you care to play?
I think it really depends on what it ends up completely being. The gameplay looks solid. Again, I was getting very big. The We Happy Few was all over it. It also gave me a little bit of like Dishonored style. It's just like a fast Dishonored, in a sense. The way he's like running up, snapping people's necks, and like sneaking and quick, and then. So I like that. I hope there's a little bit more story between the two hunting each other and stuff like that. And I'm almost sure there is. So I can't wait to see what that really develops into and what's lying on there besides the crazy fast kinetic gameplay.
All right, and now this is the transition into the heavy hitters towards the end of the conference. Finally, confirmation. We talked about this weeks ago on the podcast. Or not, at this point, probably a couple months. Resident Evil 8 Village finally confirmed. And it pretty much confirmed in the exact way the leak said. So not only did we get the VII from the Village turning into the 8, we got the witch there. We got the new kind of enemy that hunts you. We got that village theme. It has the dark aesthetic that definitely harkens back to 4 for sure, but it's definitely distinguished itself enough that I have no concerns that this is going to be retreading old ground. I like what I saw, and again, it's weird, and it's one of those things that Resident Evil's definitely transitioned into a period where each game is obviously in the same world but tackling themes and imagery that do not connect it to previous entries. Yeah. So it's definitely transitioned more into that kind of Final Fantasy where it's like you got to take each individual entry for what it is, and it's going to have its tangential connections to previous ones, but they're doing a brand new thing here. And so I'm excited for this game. Again, this is a series that I watch my girlfriend play. It is not something I play because ammo scarcity and survival horror and difficulty and scariness is not something that my body can take. However, it's something that I really, really enjoy from a narrative perspective. So RE8 finally confirmed. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, I was super excited. I wish there was a little bit more surprise. I was surprised it was there. I loved I loved everything about it. All the enemies, the style. I wish that some of this stuff didn't leak because it was, again, almost spot on. You're playing as, obviously, Ethan, because even when it first starts off, it says, his story's coming to an end. It's first person. Chris comes out at the end of the trailer. All the enemies there. Even the name of the game being Village. I'm like, all right, so it is. I'm going into it as someone who really loved RE2 and 3 Remake. I'm like, this is a sequel to 7. This is a sequel to 7, not a sequel to the series. I understand it's Resident Evil 8, obviously, but it's a sequel to 7, which is its own thing, and I loved. For some dumb reason, I played it in VR, and I was super terrified the whole time, and at the time, my girlfriend was going nuts because she laughed how much I was crazy. But I did enjoy what they were doing there. So this makes me want to go back to replay 7, mainly because there was that Chris Redfield chapter that came out afterwards that I never played. Yeah, that I never played. So I'm assuming I gotta play that to know a little bit of what's going on. I never know what connects that, and hopefully it's not too reliant on that. But I love Resident Evil. I'm actually on the back burner playing through some of the older ones. And I can't wait to get to replay 7 probably right before I play Village. I can't wait.
Yeah, and this is a smart choice for them to do because Resident Evil 7 was very, very well received, and it finally kind of broke that kind of downward trajectory Resident Evil was in. And of course 5 and 6 certainly have their fans, but generally speaking, from a critical perspective, that's not people's favorite Resident Evil games. And so I feel like 7 finally thrust them back in a good position, and obviously with the 2 remake and 3, a lot of discussion to be had there, but they're on a general upward trajectory for the Resident Evil series. So basically taking the gameplay style and the type of world you set up in 7, along with that kind of spiritual heritage of 4, which is the widely accepted to be the best Resident Evil game. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, and I think this is certainly a recipe to succeed, just judging by kind of the superficial aspects of the game.
Yeah, it just makes sense too to release after you were doing 2 and 3 remake. If they would have done another remake or another Resident Evil in that exact same style, it wouldn't have felt as new and fresh, especially when you're landing on a new console. You're landing on the PS5. Give us a little something different so it doesn't feel stale. It's been years now since Final Fantasy, since Resident Evil.
Yeah, both of us keep saying Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought that I was going to show up at this conference. That's one part of me. That's why. But again, it's been so long since we've played, 7. When we do get to play 8, it's going to be different. And then who knows, maybe after that, people will finally get their Resident Evil 4 remake. And it's going to be even greater because you didn't just replay 3 other games in that exact same style. So this is exactly what I wanted to see from Resident Evil 8.
Yeah, and so because of all the leaks we got, when they first showed off that village, I was like, oh, Resident Evil. And I got it right. This next game, I saw really weird imagery. I saw a spaceman. I saw a robotic cat. I saw them go to the moon. I was like, oh, I got this one. 2 for 2. Kojima's next game. Wrong. Pragmata, Capcom game. I felt stupid. I felt sad. We don't know what the hell this game is, but visually, it's quite the journey. What did you think?
Yeah, so I was super excited. Again, I had the same feeling. I'm looking at this and I'm like, why does this feel like Death Stranding? And to a sense, not saying it's, but I was like, why does this feel like Death Stranding? I'm like, what? I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just because he kind of is in a big old spaceman suit, and you had weird see-through cats. I was like, no one could tell me that trailer didn't have Kojima written all over it. So the fact that was your guest makes sense.
It looks so excited much like it.
Yeah, I was just like, what the heck? And when they're on the planet, I was like, I don't know. If I just wouldn't have surprised me. I did not see Capcom coming out. I don't be like,
yeah, we got the back-to-back Capcom.
And you know me and Capcom. I love Capcom. So I was like, what's next? Are they gonna show? All I needed was them to show me like Street Fighter 6 right after this, and I'd be like, Capcom, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But I'm super excited.
This is not your conference.
Exactly. I just been like, no, let's slow it down. But it's exciting to see. It's obviously very intriguing. I'm thinking it's hitting some of those Death Stranding notes for sure. I don't think anyone can deny that. There's got to be some little bit of inspiration and sparks there. But again, it's also the taste that of these games really go for. So I can't wait to see. I love Capcom, and I usually support everything they do to a point.
Yeah, and then I guess we can wrap up the game section before we get into the console with the last game that was shown off, the absolute juggernaut, the next major first-party release from Sony, Horizon Forbidden West, Guerrilla's next game. Now, I was actually surprised to see this, to be honest. When I first saw, before I noticed that it was like overgrowth on like abandoned buildings, when I saw a more tropical environment, I was like, oh, are we getting Far Cry? Because they did say there's rumors that the next Far Cry was going to be more tropical and stuff like that. But no, once I saw the abandoned trees, I saw a tropical, and then I saw that that robotic animal kind of come out. I was like, oh my god, Horizon, it's coming back. And I was surprised because I could have sworn that I thought Guerrilla was going to come back with Killzone first. Who knows, chronologically they still might, but they at least revealed the next Horizon game first. So, I mean, this game looks phenomenal. Talk about diversity of environment. It's gorgeous. It has a style to it visually that I think actually kind of differentiates itself in terms of at least the color palette and the general vibe. When they showed those kind of humans on Earth surrounded by that kind of like red vegetation, that visually looked so different than the first one that I think is just a fantastic direction to take the series and just show that this is on a different scale. This is, if you think that this was just them taking the world that they set up in one and maybe adding a little couple things and continuing the story, no. This is the next gen jump we needed for a first party Sony release. What did you think?
There's so many times around this conference that I've already said it a few times, is I was speechless. I was like, so we already saw, I got Resident Evil 8, I got Spider-Man to start off, I got all these other smaller titles that I really like, Ghostwire and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, it's got to be time to show the console. It's got to be time to show me the box. And then you're gonna give me Horizon. I just can't believe that we saw in a sense, the sequel to Spider-Man and the sequel to Horizon in the same conference. I would have swore one or the other. And when they show me this, I'm like, awesome. I'm waiting right after to finish The Last of Us 2 to go do my replay of Horizon and to finally do the DLC.
Good luck with Ghost of Tsushima. Good luck.
Oh yeah, man. So I might have to wait till Ghost of Tsushima as well. So I forgot. I didn't forget about it.
Cyberpunk is coming out.
No, there's time between.
Oh yeah, August.
I can knock down. I can knock down. I'll be honest. I'll probably play it on the story mode, which just to really get through that beginning part because I played it and it's fresh in my memory.
It's a tough year, man. It's packed.
It is, but you know what? We gotta do it for the people. So I cannot. So eventually, so you're true. So after Ghost of Tsushima, I will probably replay my Horizon, and I cannot wait. But everything I loved about Horizon, and I played so much of it. It's all evolved. You got underwater. You got those. I had flashbacks to Star Wars Episode 1 when she had that thing in her mouth to breathe underwater. You tell me that wasn't
when they went to
Jedi. Yeah, don't tell me that wasn't the Jedi thing.
Yeah,
loved it. I loved it, but
hey, Batman does that too. We can't just give him the Episode 1.
It's just it's some reason about that. It sparked, but not only that. I can already see the improvements. What the power is giving them to do with the way that they're doing the lighting effect. The way, like you're saying, that she looks to the ground and she sees these red vines infecting, and then it slowly brings into the green, and then you're underwater and it's got this blue, and you have all these new enemies. You got those masked. I don't know what to call them. The tribe thing that you see at the end. All these people. You got these enemies, and then I was worried for a second. I was like, where are the robots again? Because that's such a signature thing of Horizon. We see that she had the earpiece and everything, and she's riding one. Then they're like, don't worry, here's these huge ones, and I'm like, there it is. They know what they're doing, and I don't think there was any doubt that this game was obviously coming, but I didn't think we were gonna get it so soon, and I didn't know if they were gonna know how to top it. So I can't wait to see gameplay wise, but I cannot wait to see what they do motion capture wise, what they do story wise, voicing wise, because there's so much emotion and stuff like that stuck with me through Horizon that I can't wait to see that even pushed more. Now that they're they've proven themselves, they're like, listen, we know what we can do with our stuff. Really give it to us, because people were nervous. They're like, the Killzone guys are making this. No, now it's like, no, the Horizon guys are making the sequel, and it's just like a stamp on being like, listen, you guys know what we can do, and this has pushed them to high up on that Sony level, where first party level, where they're not just the shooter guys who come out at the beginning of the gen. This is something people have been clamming, just craving, and they're like, don't worry, we got you. Here it is, and a little more, and they just sprinkled on top so much extra, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to play it.
Yeah, and I mean, if there was any doubt after that crazy run they had with Uncharted 4 and God of War, and Horizon, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, the first party just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Could they keep up the pace? From what they've communicated here, it looks like the future for Sony is super bright. And that going into this next generation, there's no doubt that they could keep up the momentum that they established with PS4 into PS5. I have faith that they can do that now. It's not that I doubted it before, but again, things have to be proven, you know? So seeing all of this, hey, if they can get this on a consistent release schedule and everything comes on time, yeah, the PS5 is going to be fine. They're going to be doing good, and obviously they have the momentum from the astronomical sales of the PS4. So yeah, the future for Sony is super bright.
Yeah, I can't wait. This laid such a beautiful groundwork, and this is so close to the vest. Like, we don't have like third parties, we don't have Ubisoft's stuff lined up. We don't have these other third party games that haven't been announced on the roadmap either. This, even if you just look at what Sony showed today, I mean, this stuff. There's I think only one game was announced for 2022 or something like that, but. Or 2021.
Yeah, a lot of 2021 stuff. That's good to see.
A lot of 2021 stuff, and that may sound far, guys. We're halfway through. We're 6 months away from that. So
yeah,
that stuff. If we see 2025, then we start pumping the brakes. But luckily, Bethesda wasn't here in full force.
If you get mad at a 2021 release date or a 2022 release date, just imagine how the Elder Scrolls fans feel. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, take a moment to think back. How fast did March, April, May go through for you? For most people, I understand different lifestyle because we were all quarantined, but that 3 months went by very quickly, and this year doesn't show any point of stopping. And I'm glad that this is what it looks like. I was worried, I was like, man, they could really botch this, and with Sony, you never know. And I went in thinking they're gonna botch this up, and here they're like, here, you guys want games and gameplay? Here you go. So I did like also, before we jump to the final part, obviously, I like that they had like different representatives from different companies and all that stuff. I like that they also didn't just sit there and talk about the games, and it's not a shade throwing to what like Xbox did at the few there that we've seen where they just talk for 5 minutes about how great the Xbox is going to be. PlayStation's like, here's the representative from the company comfortably saying, listen, I'm from this company and we're making game A, and why would I talk to you about it when I can show you? And that's just such a beautiful presentation of just rolling and rolling and rolling, and I just couldn't believe that's what we got today.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense probably why this presentation took so long to release, because the level of quality was very high. I mean, again, you have to consider a lot of people are working from home, so when you're seeing other people's conferences, yeah, you're getting a more crude experience where people are kind of using webcams from home and blah blah blah. But I mean, this was effectively as polished as a normal Sony conference would be. You probably wouldn't even notice that people were kind of from home until that last little bit where it pivoted to all the developers. But the entire presentation of itself, was of a very high quality, and I gotta give them a lot of credit for that, because again, this could have went wrong in a lot of ways. We've had a lot of awkward Sony conferences with the guy coming out playing the flute and all that. It's been weird. But they came out. They didn't do anything too weird. They hit you with game after game after game. A little Sony graphic. Game, Sony graphic. Like, perfect. Good pacing. Didn't drag on too long. Didn't have some Sony exec, talking our ear off about some weird, the future of Sony, blah, blah, blah. Like, they didn't hit us with all that. And, I mean, I'm impressed. But we're obviously not wrapping it up, because we got the biggest part of the conference to talk about, which is what these games are actually going to be played on, the console itself.
So excited.
Now, we finally got a look at the console. It matches the general aesthetic of the DualSense that we saw.
The black on white.
Yeah, a very interesting looking console. I'll get into my more specific thoughts in a few. But we did get confirmed, a little charging stand, a little camera that you're going to get there. The more interesting detail, 2 SKUs of it. So you're going to get a digital SKU only with no disc drive, and then a traditional disc drive version of the console. Obviously, this is only going to make sense if the MSRP is decently below that. Like, it's not going to have the Xbox SAD issue where, oh yeah, the MSRP is lower. Yeah, but it's more expensive than any regular version you'd find on Amazon. So hopefully, if they get that MSRP right low enough to justify buying the digital only version, because again, if we're talking about like a $10 difference here and you just can't play games, like, I don't see why you'd lock yourself out of physical games for that price differential. But if they play their cards right, man, I think this is a good offering for a player. And hey, man, if you play all digital, why pay extra money for something you're never going to use? It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
So, Steve, what did you think about the visual look of this console? It's very, very abnormal. It's not the normal-looking Sony offering. You're getting kind of YouTube pre-render Xbox 720 looking console here. So, but hey, it's not the dev console. But it's not the dev unit that was going around the V that everybody was horrified it was going to be. So, what did you think about this?
So again, I went in gut expecting that V, what some people call the pizza holder, the pizza slice holder. I don't know what I was expecting that. I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be an ugly box. As long as it does what I needed to do, it's fine. And then they're showing the DualSense, and they show the accessories, and then they show the console. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, what? I'm like, I feel like they've played it very safe, you know. PlayStation's always kind of been square, black boxes. And, you know, PS3 came out. PS3 had, obviously, the piano look. And then they went to their normal, slim, square, black boxes. Then they did that weird George Foreman grill, which is dumb.
Oh, God. We don't talk about that.
The PS4 comes out, and it's a rhombus, but which is just a tilted square, black box. For all intents and purposes. And then they're like, here's this weird taco book looking thing, and it's half white and black, and you got a little blue here. It's like a wave, and I just felt so confused.
I'll give them that. It's sleek.
You know what it is, and I'll give it looks 2020, and that's what I told. I haven't spoken to anyone about this yet, but when people ask me all weekend what did I think, I'm like, oh, it looks 2020. It looks futuristic, whereas Xbox has gone with they've just fridge, a black tall tower. Sony's like, well, listen, you know, as long as the hardware's in there, let's play with it. Let's make it make it accent the DualSense. And you got the weird waves, which always reminds me of like the PlayStation Home like screen, where, you know, it has that like weird sensey wave in the background, and it had that. And then obviously they were kind of teasing it the whole conference, because between everything they were showing, like, you know, square, triangle, cross, circle over and over, pumping through different waves and coming out through weird particles. So I'm like, it is. I like in my mind right now, if I look at it, it's like, how would I draw this? Like, how would I tell people what does it look like? I don't know, but it looks freaking insane. It looks futuristic. It looks like a wild dream. Like this is it. It just looks like something that you would see in a movie. Like they would call like the Playbox 200 or whatever. Like that's, you know, you remember the Game Sphere from Drake and Josh? It like just so weird, but I love it. I don't know what it. At first I was like, ugh. I was like, what is it? And then I just was like, you know what? I can't wait to have that over there on my mantle. I cannot wait to have that right there next to my TV. You know, move my PS3 down a shelf and put it right next to my PS4. Because it's so weird. It's so awkward. I want people to come in and be like, what is that? I'm like, that's PlayStation 5. What do you got in your living room? Don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of probably negativity. I haven't gone to Twitter yet to really see. Literally, I watched the conference. We sat down to record.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of people.
I haven't seen the reception yet.
I'm sure there's a lot of negativity. There's probably a lot of haters. There's people wanted this conference to fall. It didn't. People wanted the box to look like the pizza holder. It didn't. I don't know what it looks like now. I could not tell you what that looks like, but it looks awesome. How did this unravel for you when they like that spotlight turned on and then you saw that? What was the gut? What was the gut instinct?
Again, I was instantly transported to 2006 YouTube 240p Xbox 720 leaked photo with some weird, that one EDM track that's on all those videos.
Yeah.
And I was like, there is no way it looks like this. I was losing. I was like, there's no way. There's no way that this, are they trolling me? This looks crazy. Now, to be honest with you, going back to pretty much every PlayStation reveal in terms of the actual look of the console after the PS1, I've kind of reacted to this, like all of them. Like when I saw the PS4 and I saw it was like half matte, half shine, I was like, what the hell is this thing? And then when I saw the piano thing, I'm like, look at why does it have the Spider-Man font? Like, I've always been like jarred by brand new PlayStation consoles, and then it's a lot of the time the revisions that I'm comfortable with it by that point. So it's like I don't know what, like, my first gut instinct when I saw it, I hate it. I was like, oh, I hate this. This is a cursed box. I hate the look of it. I'm getting it, but this is cursed. This is a forbidden box. I don't want to look at it again. Stop the conference. Now thinking about it, I took a look at it. I was like, you know what? It's sleek as hell, though. There's kind of like a liquid wave to it that I'm like, you know what? If you talk about differentiating your console from the previous ones, like when you line up these 4, like PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 next to each other, like holy crap, what a jump! And if they're talking about like the biggest generational leap, that's what Sony's marketing is talking about. The visuals coincide with that, and not to mention when I have all the consoles next to each other, I'm gonna have I guess the Switch, because that's technically gonna be competing with them. But the Switch, I'm gonna have the fridge Series X next to it. And then this thing, I mean, wow, next gen's gonna look absolutely nuts. Like, I can't believe the next gen consoles look like this.
I didn't even think about that.
Just think about how these things are gonna look next to each other. Both of them standing up, the Wave and the fridge next to each other. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I've never loved and hated the look of a console so much in my life. I do not know what to think. It's something that I'm probably gonna need to buy and have in my living room and sit down and sit back and look at this thing and cry and then finally come to terms with it before I really know what I think about it. Because again, it's so not what I thought it was. I didn't know what to expect because I was like, I hope it's not what they were sending the devs. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be a traditional box, because when I think of like a traditional box, I think of kind of like the Xbox One S right now. It's a very traditional looking box. It's sleek. It's beautiful. I love the look of that console. But that's what pretty much you'd expect from a console. This is definitely not what you'd expect. It's what the weird, YouTube 2006 conspiracy theorists would think a console would look like in the future. But it's not what I think, Sony would release. So I would say I'm genuinely happy because they're taking chances. And I love when console developers don't take, or don't play it safe. You know what I mean? So, hey, I'll take the giant Tower of Mordor, and I'll take the weird wave asymmetrical water console, white water console. I'll take it. It also it doesn't not look like the towers of the future. Like when they show 3001, how New York's going to look. And there's always a building that looks like this.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy for what they've done. All in all, I'm super optimistic about this conference. I'm optimistic about the console and the games. And it just makes me so excited for holiday 2020, whenever that is. Probably going to be November, most likely, before Thanksgiving, if I had to guess, because they want to hit that Black Friday sale. But, I'm happy with the conference. I don't got too much more thoughts than that. You guys beat your ears over. We're about to hit an hour and a half here. But I'm happy with it. I'm more than impressed.
I was completely blown. I'd give this, if I had to rate this for some reason, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Like, this was amazing. I'm like, this is what I'm gonna be talking about all weekend. I hope my wife's prepared for me to just constantly be like, because oh man, she can't, and you know the situation, so she can't walk away from me. So it's gonna be exciting, and she's gonna be tired of hearing it. I can't wait. This is
be like, we got bug snacks, babe. Bug snacks.
That's the only thing, man. That's that one thing. That's the man.
I hate to hate. I don't want to hate on that game. It's just.
I don't want to, but
it's just like, knack now.
I'm like, yeah, that's the new knack. Bug snacks. I was like,
watch us look stupid though. Watch it be the next Astrobot, amazing VR title or something like that, and we're just sitting here like, well.
Listen, I'll gladly listen. If it ends up being this fantastic game, I will buy 10 copies and give them out, because I'm one, like, I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I'll also admit when something's good. It's just, I just don't feel like it's good for me.
I love being proven wrong for the better. When a game succeeds that I didn't think was going to succeed, I'm happy for.
Exactly, so. Yeah. I never thought Fortnite was going to be a thing. I'm more than happy if it's a thing. It's a weird thing. Oh, yeah. You remember when they announced Fortnite, and I was like, dethroning PUBG, like to see it. And I remember when they showed Fortnite before they even did Battle Royale. I remember when they're like, I was like, the guys who made Gears of War. I was like, you guys went from Gears of War. You went from Gears of War to this? I was like, Yeah, then like, what happened to it? Now we hang out in concerts. I'm more than happy being wrong. I just don't think I'm going to be wrong about bug snacks.
The PS5 conference event, the next event coverage we're probably going to do is going to be the Xbox first party event That's probably coming in July if I'm not mistaken. So this is the first of many videos that we're going to have. And obviously this is not the last that we're going to hear of the PS5. And we'll have a lot more discussion about this as we get more information about it closer to launch. And I hope you guys stay on this journey with us. So till next time, this is Jabril and I am with
Steve.
And this is Neo Vintage Discussions. See you guys.